me. I'm a person too, so I appreciate that. Hey, thank you. Greg, how you doing, man? Great to see you all today. Thank you so much for showing up. Thank you for leaving the crowd surfing rows wide open, so I can't do that. I'm sure my wife appreciates that. That saved me from that injury. Super awesome to have you all here. Thanks for coming in. They're still filing in. We are excited to have you all here today. Thank you so much for being here. Couple of quick notes, housekeeping or whatever. For anyone who is online, because we do have this streaming, there is a real possibility that the camera that is streaming this is going to cease to have power at some point during the stream, and so if that happens, sincere apologies. There is a recording of this morning's session already up on the YouTube channel, and so if you're worried about the stream being interrupted and that'll just throw off your groove, then you're welcome to view the already recorded one now or go back to it later. But anyway, just fair warning that could happen. There's no need to call the district office and go to the tech department because there's nothing they're going to be able to do to help you. So I'm letting you know ahead of time that could happen. And then, yeah, everyone, welcome. Welcome. Just by way of knowing who's around the room, even though I've more or less already latched onto it, we'll do this anyway. I always like to do roll call. So we got, I'll pretend like I don't know. Where's West Wendover Elementary? Yeah, there you are. Hey, you know what? I didn't know where you all were. I just saw them here and figured that was all of you, but you're all over the room. Thank you, West Wendover Elementary, for being here. What about West Wendover Middle School? Woo! I love it. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. And since we're still, we'll continue with West Wendover. Where's our high school? Where are you all at? Hey, different parts of the room. Great, thank you so much, West Wendover. What about our friends from Jackpot? Do we have Jackpot here? Hey, they almost tried to start the wave just there. I don't know if you guys caught that. That guy was fully committed to the wave. Very nice. What about, we'll do, Wells Elementary. Where's Wells Elementary? Yes, hello friends. What about the Wells Secondary folks? Also around the room. That's very great. Thank you for being here. Carlin, where's Carlin? Yeah, very good. I guess I didn't break you up into elementary and secondary, but you don't want to be split up anyway. You all love each other so much. I know that. And Owyhee, where's Owyhee? Hey, here we are, and there we are too. Very good. Geographically, I'm looking around the map. I think that is. I know we have folks and friends at Battleborn Youth Challenge Academy, but they are well in the swing of education already, and so they have been excused from attending in person because they are actively teaching right now. Is there anybody else in here who, district personnel, any other realm of things that is not assigned to a school specifically? Oh, yeah, thank you. Hello. Oh, my goodness. Yes, shame on me. All right. So do you want me to call the 4 schools individually, or would you rather do a collective woo? Collective woo. So if you're from Montello, Ruby Valley, Independence Valley, or Mound Valley, let me hear you. Woo! There we are. Thank you. Again, shame on me. Thank you so much for making sure I acknowledge you. All right, so we've got y'all here today. Thanks for being here. I want to acknowledge how important this is. There was a little bit of conversation back in the spring about whether or not we do a convocation this year. By way of reminder, the motivational speakers that we've had in the past, that has never costed the district a single dollar. Some people asserted that maybe we should stop wasting money on that. Well, we didn't waste money on that. That money was donated to us. But instead of doing a motivational speaker this year, because I would never deign to describe myself as such, we did want to talk about something very important to us, and that's the ECSD, or the Elko County Portrait of a Learner. And so this whole session is going to be about where we're going together as a district, and most importantly, why we're doing that. So I want to make sure you know that over the past year to 2 years, we have been doing very important work to get clear about what we want for every young person who comes through our schools. And today is an opportunity to bring the whole district now into that conversation. And a lot of you have already participated in this process in one way or another. You may not remember that you did, but many of you did. And so now we are cohesively doing it like officially. So I want to make sure it's clear too that this is not the launch of another initiative. This isn't a program. There's no software associated with this. There's no trainer that's going to come in and teach you what a portrait means outside of what the discussion we're going to have today. So this is all about getting clear on what the North Star is for our district and how that North Star should guide really all the decisions we make. And when I say we, that means me at my level, that means all of our directors, that means the principals, that means you as teachers and paraprofessionals, and really everybody that works in our school district. This North Star that we're going to talk about today should guide all decisions and the way we do everything in Elko County School District and in the county as a whole. So I want to make sure you know that what the why is behind this. And that's going to kind of be a developing theme throughout, and I'll finish with some more why. But we need to be honest with ourselves and with each other that right now we are in the middle of a turning point in education in not only our communities, but in our country. The education is changing, the landscape of it, the face of it, how education happens, it's all changing. And so we need to ask ourselves, well, why does it matter? Why is what we do matter? And I know why it matters, and hopefully you know why it matters to you. But in order to make sure that we are making it matter for our students as well, that's an important why for this. It's also important for me. Some of you know this, maybe you don't. I came to Elko County School District as the principal in Wells, and I experienced, that's the first experience I had in our district was in one of our outlying communities, right? And so something that happened when I became the superintendent was it was very important to me to the greatest extent possible, make sure that there is that we don't have the haves and the have-nots, that we make opportunities equally available to students across the district, that what we do in one part of our district is also done in another part. Now, there are things that necessarily are different from place to place just because of structures and budgets and things like that. But in the end, we want our students, no matter where they live, to have an equally awesome educational experience. And part of that is making sure we're all aligned in certain ways. And I want us to think of ourselves as educators as more than just content deliverers. We're going to talk a little bit about how content is just readily available to us in so many different ways. And so it's almost a way to think to yourself about, well, if our kids can get information anywhere, then why do I matter? And the why you matter is a big why. And we want to talk about that some more today. I also want to point out that I'm not just someone who makes these decisions for kids across the district, but it's for kids that I care about too. Personally, I have currently 3 children that are Elko County School District students. I used to have 4, but one of them graduated last year, and that was a pretty amazing experience for me, and I'm grateful to our school district for and all the teachers and everybody who put so much into helping my oldest Eli grow and become a high school graduate last year, and he's on to great things now. And I have nieces and nephews that go to our schools. We all have people that matter to us that go to these schools, and so I want you to think about that. And as we talk about all this today, it's going to be so easy to I want to challenge you, it's going to be so easy to think about a lot of different things and what this means and what kind of burden could this create, what kind of, thinking about the yeah buts as we talk about these things. But I want to challenge you to keep the focus on our students as we talk about these things and why this could be so important. And if you believe that this thing can be so important, and I have a hard time right now believing that when you see the things we talk about, you would be willing to say, no, that's not important, right? And so if that's the reality, that this is important, then for our students, and it's the most important, then what is it that we can do to make sure our focus stays on that and not on something else? So as we're going to go ahead and jump into it now, and in order to do that, I'm going to introduce you to a good friend of mine, and that is Janice Case. She's been lurking in the shadows over there. Janice Case works with the, always got to read this, the National Center on Education and the Economy, or NCEE, as I always refer to it, and she's been working with us as a design partner for the Portrait of a Learner that we're going to talk about today. And she's worked with a lot of our staff members across the district. I mean, it's hundreds at this point. And she has an awful lot to offer, and so the two of us are going to kind of co-facilitate this today. And so I'm going to turn the time over to Janice.
There we go. You're so kind. It's always a relief to get a little applause right up front. Then I'm like, all right, my job here is done, right? No matter what happens. I got a little something, something right up front. All right. The only thing I'm going to add to what CJ said by way of introduction is that part of the, so I'm the Regional Director West for NCEE, which means nothing to you, and you don't have to remember that. But I got here starting as a special education teacher for kids and adults with pretty severe disabilities. I grew up in a very rural part of Virginia, worked in a school that was a part of the community where I went to college. That was a K-12 school, and then eventually went into public school, where I became eventually a department chair, and then a high school assistant principal, then a middle school principal, then a high school principal. It was as a high school principal that I was introduced to NCE, and that's how I ended up on the path here. So I say that not because I like to introduce myself in great length, but more because hopefully it gives me just a little bit of street cred in terms of like knowing maybe just a little bit about what I'm talking about. So CJ said, listen, the county brought a bunch of folks together from all over the community. He's going to talk more about that. And part of what I want to do is introduce you to a little bit of the research they considered, because it wasn't just like come to the room and be like, hey, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? It was that because all of you and all of them bring a great deal of expertise from their roles, but it was also what does the research say, right? So that we're thinking both what Elko County needs, but also what the world is going to expect of our young people. And so we're going to start by like looking at how the world has changed for them through a couple of different lenses, right? The first lens is simply from a technology lens, right? So let me start by asking a very personal question. How many of you were born in the 1900s? Like me? There are my people. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I told the group this morning I was filling out a thing online where you had to put your birth year, you know, and I had to keep scrolling and scrolling. Kind of made me angry, right? I was like, really? This is what my mother felt like. Okay, I get it now, right? Okay, so then everybody else was born in the 2000s? Yes, 2000s? Anybody? Just a couple people? So we have some 1,800 people in here. Okay, great. We got it. A lot of different folks in the room. So I just want you to think about, right, how the world has changed in our period of time and how long it took, right, for some of the technology that came into our world to come to us as kids and as teenagers and as young adults. For our kids, it's coming like rapid fire, right? So let's position it. Young people who, like CJ's son, like my youngest daughter, my husband and I have 6 kids between us. The youngest is 19, the oldest is 35. Youngest one is just finished her first year of college, right? So she's in that end of the screen, I'm afraid to say right or left, that side of the screen, right? Post-secondary. She is among some of her, or all of her compatriots at that age who never knew a life, right? They will have never known a world without the internet, without being able to Google something, right? And even without Wikipedia, I don't think we care about that too much anymore, but you know, it was a thing, right, back in the day. So her generation will never know a time when those things didn't exist, yeah? Right next to them are the kids sitting in your high schools right now, right? That group of young people will never know a world where some of the technologies you see there indicated existed, like Facebook, which they don't care about. We know that, that's for us, right? But also like YouTube, right? So YouTube is a place where we all know you can go 24/7 and learn how to do just about anything, yeah? Anybody else besides me use YouTube in the last month for something? Yeah? For me, it was to learn how to use my new makeup palette, right? Like, it's all things, yeah? So for the first time, a generation of kids who their entire lives never knew a time when they couldn't go online and be taught to do something, right? So they kind of weren't necessarily waiting until the next day when I got to school and I could ask Miss Strum, my 4th grade teacher, about whatever I was wondering about, yeah? All right, so really quickly with each other, by the way, you're going to talk to each other a lot, so if you're not close to other people, you might want to make that happen. But really quick, I want you to just talk 30 seconds. What is a technology that you remember as a child coming online into your life? I will give you an example. Mine is the microwave. I remember when the microwave came into my home. It was life-changing. 30 seconds. Talk to your neighbor really quickly. What's something you remember? All right, let me have you back. Let me hear a couple. What did you come up with? By the way, CJ felt the need to come all the way over here to tell me that the internet was coming on just as he was coming out of high school, to which I said, yeah, because I'm a few years older than you. He said 10. You're 10 years older than me. Thank you very much, CJ, for pointing that out. That was really nice of you. Other technologies that came online. Let me hear them. Oh, mwah, the calculator. The calculator, people. Yep. What else? Let me hear. Oh, yes. VCR Walkman. You could carry your music around. How many of you, okay, really quickly, I'm not going to linger too far, but how many of you remember that the only way to get a song and to be able to play it over and over again, to tape it, you had to do what? Listen to the freaking radio and hope that you got it right on time, and then your little brother came and interrupted and you didn't push record and you had to start all over and wait for the DJ to play it again, right? So some of that stuff was big. It was big for us. And yet now when we look at what our kids, right, again, the pace at which the change came and the impact that it has. So let's fast forward to middle school now, right? The kids sitting in your middle schools right now will never, and will never know a time when they didn't have constant 24/7 access to each other. Now that hits home for me in two ways. First, of our 6 kids, 4 are girls. And as a mom of 4 girls and a middle school principal, one of my mantras has always been, if a girl can survive 7th grade, she can survive anything. I'm just saying, if you know what I mean, you know what I mean, right? And yet, when I went home to my little rural town in Spotsylvania, Virginia, I got off the bus at the end of the day, walked 27 miles, at least that's what it felt like, to my house, right, down the driveway, and it was over. Right? It was over for like 10 hours. I had a break until the next day during first period when some obnoxious girl sent me a mean note, right, in first period, because that's the only way she could communicate, because we didn't have cell phones, right? So they had a break. Our kids now, that's not true unless we as the adults are making that happen, yeah? All right, now to your elementary kids. Your elementary kids are a generation of young people who will never know a world where they will always, let me put it this way, will always know a world where they could speak something out loud and make something happen because of technologies like Alexa and Siri and Google Play or whatever it is that you use, yeah? Always. We are also very fortunate to have 3 granddaughters. When the now 4-year-old was about 18 months, she was at our house for Christmas, toddling around her little 18-month-old self, and she would say randomly, Sexa, play Barney, blah, 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 whatever it was. Because that's how she said Alexa. But at 18 months, her little brain understood that if she said something out loud, she could make something happen. Yeah? That's a whole different world. And last but not least, all the way to this end of the screen, right? That same 4-year-old granddaughter, and now my youngest 8-month-old granddaughter, is never going to know a time when AI wasn't just the microwave or the cell phone or Google or whatever, this thing, right, that we're all trying to figure out, like, what do we do with it? How do we use it? What do we teach them? What do we don't teach them? How do we block it? It's just going to be her cell phone, her microwave, her whatever, right? Because she'll never know a time without it. Yeah?
Hey, Janice, can I share an example from this weekend that just happened?
Okay,
It melds those last 2 together. My son asked me, he said, hey, Dad, he had a thought experiment for me. And I know everything, and no one ever questions me in my house.
No.
So he said, would it be harder for an average basketball player to score 1 point on LeBron James at his prime, playing the hardest defense he could possibly play against you, or for an average Fortnite player to get a kill during a game against this person called Peterbot? And so we started to talk about it, and I went through and I gave him my opinion, and he was like, nah, I disagree. I thought it would be harder to score on LeBron James, and he thought it would be way harder to get a kill on Peterbot. And then to try to show me how much smarter he was than me, he spoke out loud to ChatGPT and asked in fact, he calls his ChatGPT Bae. He says, "Hey, Bay." And then in a very sexy, manly voice, Bay responds, and totally sided with my son on his perspective. And so he used ChatGPT speaking out loud to show me that he was better at this thought experiment than I was.
Because our kids don't already have enough ways to prove us wrong. So
Yeah.
great. Technology helps that too. That's awesome, CJ. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. So the world has changed a lot. Take just a minute, again, right really quickly with someone right next to you. I'm curious about, we all know this. This isn't a secret, but having talked about it all at one time, sometimes it makes us think a little bit differently. So what do you feel like are the takeaways for us as we think about this? And I'm going to ask you to not do something. It's easy to go, it's ruining them, it's da-da-da-da. There are challenges, 100%. I don't disagree with any of those arguments. But for this minute, I'm hoping you're going to focus on what does it mean for us, right? And what are the implications for us, knowing that that's the world they're in right now when they come to us every day? Can you have just a minute conversation about that, and then we'll come back? Go for it. Take about 20 more seconds. All right, let me have you back in 3, 2, and 1. All right, we're going to build on that now, right? That's how the world, some of the ways the world generally has changed for our kids. Let's talk then about how the world of work has changed for them, right? And be clear about what the world of work is asking from them. So these two slides that I'm going to show you very quickly, by the way, your principals are going to have these slides as well, so you guys can go back and talk to your heart's content if you'd like about what you see here, because I'm only going to give a couple of minutes. So the World Economic Forum is one of many organizations that look at employer data from across the world. They're not the only one. They're not the be-all, end-all. They're just one. This is their report from 2025. This comes out, the Future of Jobs report comes out every 2 years, right? So this one's about a year old. We're about halfway through the cycle. And in it, they look, again, like I said, at industries and employers around the world, big ones, small ones, around this country, again, around the globe. And through that, they distilled, in this case, the top 26 skills that employers are looking for. Now, you're wondering to yourself, why 26? Because that's how many fit on this slide. Yep, that's it. That's exactly right. That's all. Right? Don't get too caught up in it. The list is much longer, right? These are not the only skills, but these are enough to consider. Let's go ahead and address number 21. Who wants to read number 21 for us? Reading, writing, and math, baby, right? Now, 2 years ago, at their 2023 report, reading, writing, and math was number 16. Now, let's be very clear, folks. That does not mean the world of work is saying they don't need reading, writing, and math. They're always going to need reading, writing, and math. Those are the basics. What it does say is they expect them to come with reading, writing, and math, and they need some of these other things, right? That if they only come with reading, writing, and math, they're not going to be employable because they need them to also be able to do some of the other things you see on the screen there, right? That's where this notion of a portrait helps us kind of think about the connectivity between the world of work where we're getting them ready for and the world of life, by the way, and what we do in schools, right? Because fundamentally, we teach reading, writing, and math, but you guys all know you do way more than that, right? That might be what the standards are, but you're doing way more than that. So here's the top 26. I'm going to show you one more screen, and then I'm going to give you a chance to talk to each other, okay? Those top 26, you notice, hopefully, aren't job-specific, are they? Right? They weren't like, oh, to be a this, you need this, or to be a this, you need this. They're very universal, right? They're the kinds of things that apply then when you look at the list of fastest growing jobs here. And to some extent, even the fastest declining jobs. Again, these lists are much longer in the report. These are just the top 10, right? So there's many more jobs to be listed there. If you're like me, the first time I saw that list on the right side, I had to use my phone to look up some stuff because I had no idea what a UI and UX designer was. Go ahead, look it up. It's okay, right? But the point is, the skills that we saw on the last slide are the kinds of skills that make it possible for young people, and all of us even, to be in industries where we can job switch, code switch, move from one industry to the other, right? Because we have a core set of skills that allow us to do that. So with all of that in mind, and one last piece, the world is changing in so many different ways for our kids, right? The way they communicate with each other is changing, how challenging it is, because yes, they do a lot of it digitally, and now we also have to make sure they can do it person to person, yeah? The way work even happens, this notion of remote work didn't really exist until COVID, right? And now all of a sudden we're remote, we're hybrid, we're all the things. And certainly, just even that green one up there on the right-hand side, we are literally living longer. So it's not even just how all those other things, but it's that we're living longer, which means for some of us, we are working longer, right? And what are the implications of that in terms of our skills and what we bring to the table? So now that I flashed through all of that, and it's hard to remember any of it, have a quick conversation, right? Like anything here surprise you? Anything here raise a question for you? What about it makes you kind of go, oh, we do those kinds of things? Have a quick conversation just to process out loud a little bit about how the world has changed for our kids. Go for it. Take about 30 more seconds. All right, let me have you back again in 3, 2, and 1. I'm squinting a little bit. It's bright up here. So we want to create opportunity for you to talk to each other because we know talking out loud helps us process, right, information. But we also want to make sure that if anybody feels compelled to share something whole group, that you have a chance to do that. So without requiring anybody to do anything, right? So is there a conversation that you were a part of that anything came up that you'd want to say out loud across? Hillary is standing poised with a microphone. Where are my principals in the room? That was awesome. The mocking laughter. Good to know. So I'm not going to this time, but next time when I ask this question, principals, I'm going to ask Hillary to come to you guys and help identify a couple of folks to share out. Yeah? Okay. So the groups who've been looking at this work, like CJ said for the last time, looked at all of that research, and from there fundamentally asked them a question. With all of this in mind, understanding and knowing all this, then what do we believe our young people who graduate from our Elko County schools are going to need in order to thrive in life and work and family and in our communities? And so with that, I'm going to turn things back to CJ.
Yeah, and this is our community's answer, is what you see right there. I want you to take a minute, and not even a minute, just, I'm going to stop talking. Just look at that. So the question that guided our process was, what is right there? What do we want every Elko County learner to become? And before you judge too harshly why it took so long to come up with those, it was a very laborious process. And there is more to it than what we're looking at here, but we're going to like slowly unveil it kind of thing. So I want you to know kind of how we got to this point. It's very important to me to let you know that this was not developed by a consultant. Now, I did mention that Janice and other folks from NCEE, and we actually had some other friends from KnowledgeWorks, and we had all sorts of people that sort of helped shape this process. But it wasn't developed by them. They facilitated, but everything that happened was the product of Elko County residents and Elko County School District employees. And I want to give you a decent idea of the voices that this grew out of. We had a very large committee that worked on this originally, and that was comprised of students from our schools, from teachers, support staff, administrators, parents of students, our partners with the NNRPDP, local leaders and politicians were on this committee, folks from GBC, mental health professionals from across the state, local industry partners, and local business owners were all part of this rather large initial committee. And there were about 40 to 50 people that were in that room. And it wasn't like 45 Elko County School District employees and then a smattering of other people. It was a loaded, evenly balanced room of people from all across our district and our county. That group met for days on end, which again, please don't judge that we met for days and came up with what we came up with, because during those days we learned, we defined, we refined, and then we did that over and over again, and we had subcommittees, and we did all of this until we had an absolute consensus among everybody about what all learners, regardless of their future trajectory, need in order to be successful throughout their future journeys and their next steps in life. I want you to think about that, that we came to a consensus about what is universally needed in order to be successful, regardless of what you go into. That's not, you can identify what an engineer needs pretty well to be a good engineer, or what a teacher needs in order to be a good teacher, or fill in the blank about any specific job or life trajectory. But when you think about what everybody needs to be successful regardless of, that's a little tougher to boil down to. And thinking specifically about our kids in our communities and our industries that exist here, and it becomes a little tougher. Just picture the most busy PD you've ever been in. Picture the chart paper all around the room. Picture the smell of markers all around you and on your hands. Picture sticky notes galore everywhere, and that's exactly what that was for days on end. And until we came to this agreement, and not only was that committee, because that doesn't sound like in the grand scheme of things, 50 people isn't a lot of people. It's a good number of people, but it didn't stop there. We also had surveys that went out to students, to community members, and to you, our staff, and we got thousands of responses about these things. And what we came up with and what their feedback was about it, and that helped us to do further refining. We had teams of teachers at different schools who for the last 3 to 4 years have been implementing some of these types of competencies into very specific projects or ways of teaching certain content in their classrooms to see if this is doable. Does it make sense? Does it speak to our kids? Is it going to help them in ways that they need to be helped? And this is what we came up with. We came up with that every Elko County learner and future Elko County citizen needs to be a capable communicator, that they need to be a creative problem solver, that they need to be a responsible and engaged learner, and that they need to be a trustworthy leader. Regardless, again, of what their future is, they need these things to be successful, to meaningfully contribute to our communities. And I want to reinforce that this is the North Star. These are the outcomes we want to increasingly orient ourselves towards in Elko County School District and throughout our county as a whole. And this is regardless of grade level. I'm going to say this a bunch more times, but it's regardless of grade level, it's regardless of content area, it's regardless of what your role is in the school district or what it will be in the future. These are the things that we are trying to make sure that all of our learners alongside the content, because of course the content is essential, but alongside that, these are what they need in order to be successful, and this is what we need to accomplish as their educators and as their mentors and their guides. I'm not expecting everyone to, fully memorize and know everything about this right off the bat. I recognize that we're just introducing this to some of you. Some of you are very familiar with this already, and that's awesome if you are. But for some people, this is going to be pretty fresh. But I want to help you understand that these 4 titles give us the big picture. But our community and our groups went a lot further than just saying these 4 competencies, because it is a little more detailed than that. So on the next slide here, again, I'm just going to give you a moment. I want you to read through what that looks like for each of those competencies, what that means for a student. Right. Hopefully you had a decent chance to skim through and see those. You may have noticed that they're phrased in such that these are I statements, right? You do the same thing in your classrooms when you put the goal for the day or your purpose for the day and what they will be able to do, and they're phrased that way intentionally. I'm not going to read each one out loud, but I want to draw attention to a couple of things here. You wouldn't believe the wordsmithing and there were no physical altercations over what would remain, but it got pretty heated, and we had to do maybe 2 more meetings than we thought we were originally going to have to, because some people were so passionately dug in, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but dug in about no, this has to happen for our kids in order for them to be successful. And we finally got to where we got to with this, and it was very complicated to get people to agree, that many people to agree on these. I also want to point out, when you look at these, no one's going to be like, oh, wow, I'd never thought about how important that thing is. Of course these are important, but there's some power in narrowing your focus and deciding that, we have to acknowledge we can't be everything for everybody. That's not reasonable. You may mean everything to someone, but you can't be everything. That's not within our capacity. But if we can focus specifically aside of our content on what our kids need, then there's a lot of power in naming that and making sure we're intentionally drawing their attention to that so they know what's important, and making sure we maintain our focus too, because it's so easy to get sidetracked. Is there anything, you haven't had a chance to talk to each other yet about this, but did anyone read anything on here and immediately, in your heart, you were like, amen to that one? Just shout it out if you felt it. And don't be scared.